Nightingale appeared atop Roland's desk. Roland hoped that before they set out, everyone could rehearse a few more times in advance, becoming familiar with the entire capture operation and the tasks each person was responsible for. He stood up and walked to the window, gazing in the direction of the snowy mountains, and roughly recounted the plan he envisioned. Then he paused. If the capture operation encountered the worst possible situation, Roland hoped that they could abandon the mission, and at least make sure everyone came back safely. Nightingale said she would do her best. Outside the window, Roland saw Barev's figure, knowing that Barev had finally returned from the royal capital. Meanwhile, in the royal capital, when Edith and her younger brother Cole arrived, they found out that King Roland had left here a week ago, and moreover, no coronation ceremony had been held. The two came as envoys representing their father from the Northern Territory. Upon seeing them, the guards were very respectful, informing them that Minister Barev had also headed to the border town a few days ago, and no one was currently residing in the palace. The guards told them that if they wished to negotiate with the city hall, the guards could relay the message to them. Edith shook her head, saying there was no need. She hadn't expected that her premonition would come true. Having spent the entire week on the ship, didn't dare to take any rest, only arriving here empty-handed. Unexpectedly, Roland truly intended to move the royal capital elsewhere, abandoning this splendid city to construct a new capital in the Western Territory. What exactly was Roland thinking? It's impossible to build a city of this scale without 3 to 4 decades of construction. Cole trailed behind his sister, asking what they should do next. Edith was prepared to turn around and head towards the Western Territory. Cole complained that they had been on the ship for over a week and hadn't bathed. He felt he was about to be infested with lice. Edith sniffed at her collar and detected an unusual odor. Finally, she sighed, deciding they should rest for a day and set out early tomorrow. Cole added that the 2 heads they were carrying were stinking. They finally didn't have to spend time on the ship surrounded by the terrible smell. Edith pressed her forehead, she was helpless. The Northern Territory was too far from here after all, and even though they had rushed, they still missed Roland. After resting for a day, however, when they arrived at the dock the next day, they found their ship burned down to its frame. The two were stunned. Why had their ship been burned? Cole waved to a passerby to ask what had happened. The passerby enthusiastically explained that a stupid person had hidden a corpse on the ship, which smelled by a rat that was trying to steal things from the ship. A terrible plague had occurred within the royal capital 6 months ago, and everyone was very sensitive to it. The plague was caused by the spreading of corpses from the church. Therefore, it could only be safe if it was burned down with fire. The passerby also mentioned the captain had been arrested and was being interrogated by the guards. He wondered if the two had any connection with the captain. Edith didn't know how to respond for a moment and simply said, "No." Looking at the burning ship, the two knew that the journey ahead is just going to get worse from here. Now, they needed to find a new ship. Outside the city wall, many witches had gathered. Ahead were 3 targets. Leaf, taking her first attempt, summoned vines with her ability, hitting the target's bullseye. Next were Wendy and Agatha, both of whom used their abilities to strike the bullseye as well. During the last couple of days, they had been consistently training and preparing for the capture operation. Iffy watched the 3 of them. Although Roland had said all 3 of them were support witches who had contributed a lot to the territory, from what she just saw, they were totally combat witches. She shifted her gaze towards Nightingale. This beautiful blonde woman was even more terrifying. Not only could she enter the mist and path through all obstacles, moving without a trace like an unpredictable reaper, enough to make any enemy despair. What surprised Iffy the most was hearing about an enemy called demons that had destroyed the kingdom created by witches that once ruled the continent. The blue-haired woman named Agatha, who was in charge of the capture operation, came from over 400 years ago and was one of the High Awakening witches. The outcome of the so-called divine war would determine the fate of humanity. And these demons were hiding just outside of the Western Territory? She thought she misheard. Turning her gaze towards the other witches, they were not surprised, as if they had known about it all along. Looking at Anna, this harmless-looking witch in front of them was seen as the secret weapon for this entire operation. Just how powerful were her abilities? Iffy did not have to wait long to know the answer. Roland asked everyone to stand back a bit and let Anna practice. Agatha waved in the direction of the hidden forest, and after a little while, several colorful balloons leaped out of the forest rising into the sky. Iffy thought the distance was too far. If Anna couldn't fly, how could she ever hit these balloons? Roland stood beside Anna, letting her release her ability freely. Anna nodded, activating the divine seal imprint. Iffy then witnessed an incredible scene. The 4 gemstones shone at the same time. The metal pieces Anna was holding turned golden in an instant, and thunder rolled through the clear sky. Fringes of light cascaded from the clouds as if a sun was forming in the heavens. Before she could say anything, a blinding golden light burst from Anna's hand, rushing toward the balloons. The streaming flashes of lightning in the sky were also triggered, as if countless thunders were striking down, violently sweeping over where the target was along the trajectory of the golden light. Iffy felt as if she'd just seen a punishment from the gods. The deafening boom exploded next to Iffy's ears, causing a buzzing in her head, and she could not fully recover even after the light disappeared. Looking up at the now empty forest above, Iffy's body trembled slightly uncontrollably. She feared that even all the combat witches of the Bloodfang Association combined could not withstand this godly strike. Is this the true power of a high awakening witch? Roland was also witnessing the full casting process of the divine seal imprint for the first time. Roland looked at Nightingale and asked if all these electric lights were composed of magic power. Nightingale thought for a moment and said they should be. She could see the magical power within the lightning, but the color was a bit different. In the mist, Nightingale saw a dark, like void formed by the stone of God punishment. Roland approached Agatha and asked how much research she had done on the divine seal imprint. Agatha shook her head and said not much. After all, only the 3 seats of the Federation at the time were allowed to use the divine seal imprint, and their magical power was crucial in a real battle situation, so naturally, they could not be squandered on simple tests. Roland had a theory. The Stone of God punishment was not a void that restricted magical energy but contained extremely potent magic within itself, so powerful that it influenced the surrounding magic flow, rendering abilities non-functional. This also explained why the divine seal imprint rendered the balanced stone ineffective. Within its range, an interference zone similar to that of the Stone of God punishment was created, disabling the stone's operation. However, Agatha recounted that the witch responsible for observations had said that the balanced stone ceased to function upon the release of the divine seal imprint, pausing mid-sentence as a sudden realization struck her. Roland continued, perhaps that witch's observations were obstructed by the intense light burst emitted by the divine seal imprint. But in Nightingale's mist world, only magical power possessed color. Even gazing directly at the sun would not affect her vision, which was why they had not noticed it before. Agatha pondered Roland's theory that the divine seal imprint could penetrate the Stone of God punishment because it had higher magical power. Roland nodded. Agatha seemed somewhat excited but then suddenly stopped. If it was truly affected because the magical intensity was too high, why didn't it happen with the witches themselves? Roland was stunned. Agatha pointed to Anna, wondering why the magical energy inside Anna could activate the divine seal imprint twice, theoretically saying Anna would have magical power higher than the Stone of God punishment. However, her blackfire couldn't penetrate the Stone of God's punishment, and no magic interference field appeared around her, which didn't make sense. Roland was momentarily speechless, unable to explain what went wrong. Even the lowest quality Stone of God punishment could easily interrupt a witch's abilities, including Anna's powerful blackfire. Agatha said she had queried why magic stones needed magic power infused to be effective. Agatha's mentor believed that only living beings could hold magical power. Roland fell silent, pondering what he might have overlooked. After thinking for a long time with no result, he had to put the matter aside, hoping to find answers later. What they needed to focus on was the operation in 3 days' time. 3 days quickly passed. Having completed a series of preparations, Roland personally saw off the departing personnel at the dock area. This was the first large-scale mixed military operation where witches were the protagonist. There were 2 steamships in total, carrying only the most elite veterans of the First Army. They had followed Roland during the very beginning on the city wall of the border town, fighting against the demonic beasts. Before the operation, Roland had repeatedly warned during selection that they might face a very vicious enemy, much stronger than the mixed-breed demonic beasts. Those unwilling to participate in the operation could speak up, but to his surprise, no one backed down. Anna came forward and softly hugged Roland. Lightning and Maisie also came over. In the end, apart from Agatha and Iffy, everyone hugged Roland one after another. Agatha, with her tsundere personality, said it was just a simple capture operation, not a life-and-death separation. If the city of Takira were to dawdle like this every time she went on an expedition, the demons would have built an outpost at the city gate by now. Iffy was utterly shocked, for Roland said it didn't matter if the operation wasn't accomplished, only that they returned safely. A lord who cared so much for witches was truly wonderful. Iffy knew she had made a compelling choice. Suddenly, Roland felt an invisible pair of hands cradle his face, familiar whispers telling him to take care of himself while she was not there. She would be back soon. Then, a gentle lip touch brushed his face. The touch came quickly and left just as swiftly, almost like an illusion. Roland, returning to his senses, reached forward, but felt nothing around him. The steamboat was much slower than the hot air balloon, taking nearly 2 days to reach the end of the Crimson Water River. 100 soldiers from the First Army set up defenses 2 kilometers from the operation site, not directly participating in the capture. Only in the event of an accident would they intervene. The hot air balloon flew low, bypassing the obstruction of the snow mountain, allowing Sylvie to directly observe the eye demon atop the Blackstone Tower. Maisie and Lightning supervised from beside the hot air balloon. As Sylvie couldn't see everything from such a distant position, Wendy sped up the hot air balloon, the snowy mountains slowly becoming clear, and a thin red mist appeared before everyone. Sylvie gazed towards the distance again, this time deliberately intending to alert the demons, to lure them into the trap set up in the forest. Suddenly, numerous eyeballs shifted directions simultaneously. Sylvie even saw her reflected face on the dark pupils. The feeling made her shudder, a chill climbing instantly to its peak up her spine. She yelled, "They're coming!" Maisie transformed into a massive beast. Sylvie leaped down, landing on her spacious back, while Lightning, carrying Wendy, followed close behind, both flying towards the hidden forest. Taking this opportunity, Sylvie turned to look back. 5 black dots appeared above the cliff. Of the 5 pursuers, only 4 rode on the giant beasts. Among them were 2 demons they had seen before, and 2 demons with no distinct facial features, their faces bearing a large scar, resembling the mask worn by Uchiha Obito from Naruto. With folds spreading from the center, as eerie as could be. When she directed her gaze at the last demon, she paused for a moment. It wore thick, exquisite armor and carried a massive greatsword on its back, looking immensely heavy, yet it flew just as fast as the 4 giant beasts. Sylvie's heart surged with turmoil. This was not expected, and Agatha hadn't mentioned how to handle this situation. Sylvie wondered if they should proceed with the capture as originally planned. The 4 of them quickly landed deep in the forest, and Lightning bolted upwards, intending to destroy the hot air balloon as planned. Sylvie wanted to stop her, but Lightning was too fast. Maisie asked, "What's wrong?" Wendy said that weren't they supposed to meet up with the First Army next after Lightning destroyed the hot air balloon? According to the plan, Wendy and Sylvie's powers weren't much help in capturing the demons, and to minimize unnecessary risk, they should distance themselves from the main battlefield and head towards the First Army's defenses after completing their baiting mission. Sylvie shook her head and said that the enemy was more than just the demons they had seen before. There were 2 types of new demons, and she had to inform everyone. Sylvie asked Wendy to go to the riverbank first. She and Maisie would be right back. Lightning accelerated to her utmost speed, the wind howling past her ears. She had to get back to the area where the hot air balloon was before the demons, she then needed to act panicked and flee to lure the enemies into the trap. Lightning dashed to the bottom of the balloon, found the explosive package fixed to the airbag, pulled out the delay igniter, and after seeing white smoke rising from the package, immediately plummeted towards the sea. It was a simple self-destruct device. Just as lightning descended to the sea surface, a loud bang resounded. The sky even seemed to brighten a fraction for an instant. She even saw a demon, who was too close, flipped over by the rolling flames, his body engulfed in a massive fire, plummeting into the sea along with his mount. The other 4 demons sprung out from beneath the smoke, heading straight towards her. So far, everything was going according to plan. Lightning headed toward the forest. Next, she needs to lead the demons into the forest. The capturing trap was already set up, silently waiting for the prey to take the bait. The dense branches, vines, and sawgrass would surely become a nightmare for the enemy. Just then, Sylvie and Maisie quickly found Agatha. Sylvie anxiously recounted to Agatha what she had seen, which left Agatha visibly shocked. Agatha, with an uneasy expression, explained that the robe-wearing demons were the fear demons. They were terrifying killers to ordinary humans, but witches were not afraid of them. They just needed to avoid eye contact. However, the armored demon that could fly independently was likely a high-ranking demon. Agatha's voice was serious as she shared that the Federation knew very little about them. All these high-ranking demons had several abilities and resembled humans, although much taller. Both their strength and magic were extremely powerful. Legend has it that only the transcendent witches could contend with them. Sylvie was worried. They had no transcendent witches at the moment. They must notify Leaf and the others of a retreat plan. Agatha bit her lip, knowing that the high-ranking demon could fly because it was wearing a flying magic stone. If it were only Lightning and Maisie, it would be okay, but if there were many of them and they left Leaf's protective range, they would not be able to escape its pursuit. But according to what Lord Acris had once said, these high-ranking demons were extremely powerful. Agatha immediately summoned Leaf, telling her to notify all the witches to abandon the capture operation and to use the divine seal imprint to annihilate all the enemies. She instructed Nightingale to keep a close eye on the armored demon and kill it if she seized any opportunity. Sylvie couldn't help but hold Maisie tightly. Did they really have to confront a high-ranking demon? Agatha spoke seriously, saying that high-ranking demons rarely appeared alone, and right now it only had a few guards on its side. This was their best chance, and even without a resplendent witch, they might not necessarily lose. But exposing their backs to the enemy meant certain death. Going all out was their only chance of survival. Sylvie held her breath as 2 howls swept over the treetops, followed by the sound of heavy objects landing in front of them. Leaf saw the armored demon persistently chasing Lightning, while the other demons dismounted and headed into the forest. Agatha told Sylvie to hide well here, while she will be heading over and killing the 3 giant beast mounts. Sylvie, full of concern, reminded Agatha to stay safe. Agatha smiled and said she had Maisie on her side. Maisie looked eager and then transformed into a giant beast. Just as the 3 giant beasts were impatiently waiting, another giant creature suddenly descended from the sky much larger than they were, landing behind them, swirling its wings around its tail, and letting out roaring noises. The 3 giant beasts' attention was immediately drawn. Sylvie was surprised to see that the 3 giant beasts were also spreading their wings and swinging their tails, looking almost as if they were dancing just like Maisie. Moreover, it was almost as if they were trying to show off. The 3 beasts didn't give way to each other, squeezing around on the grass, trying to impress the giant beast Maisie had transformed into. Agatha stretched out her hands, and the surrounding greenery instantly revealed white frost. Even snowflakes drifted in the air. The 3 beasts let out a scream, flapping their wings trying to fly, but found themselves unable to move. Their massive limbs had been frozen to the ground, ice crystals climbing up their legs. Almost simultaneously, Maisie lunged forward, viciously biting the neck of a dancing beast with her wide-open mouth, then used her tail to shatter the unfortunate one whose body had been turned into an ice block. The third one broke free and tried to escape. Agatha pursued closely, running along the ice bridge, turning it into an ice sculpture once more. Agatha shouted at Maisie, telling her to catch her. Maisie quickly flew over, and the ice sculpture crashed heavily to the ground, shattering instantly. Upon finishing the job, it was up to Nightingale and the others. Nightingale checked her ammunition and closed the bullet chamber. Just moments ago, she heard Leaf's warning: the capturing operation is halted, and now changed to annihilation, meaning Iffy's mission has been cancelled and she must take action herself. They need to create an opportunity for Anna to unleash the Divine Seal imprint. Leaf's voice sounded in her ear, telling her that the demons were there. And Nightingale immediately entered the mist and flanked towards the direction Leaf pointed out. Following Leaf through the mist world, Nightingale soon encountered 3 demons. The high-ranking demon that required particular attention was not among them. Undoubtedly, the feared demon should be the first to be dealt with. Nightingale held her guns and leaped forward, the muzzle directly against the back of a feared demon's head. The bullet hit, penetrating its skull, and another feared demon abruptly turned around, its bloody, scarred face splitting open, seemingly about to reveal its eyes. However, suddenly, vines descended from the treetops, entwining around its head, forcibly twisting it back. Meanwhile, the other melee demon, having heard the gunshot and turning around, locked eyes with the feared demon, freezing on the spot as its body began to tremble incessantly. Anna suddenly appeared, launching dark fire alongside Nightingale's bullets simultaneously, killing the 2 demons. Lightning, which had been luring enemies into the air, suddenly shouted a warning. Nightingale barely lifted her head and saw lightning was struck and crushed down into the forest. Then she noticed a huge sword coming down towards her. Instinctively wanting to escape into the mist, she found that the enemy wielding the sword was reaching out to her, and the black and white world that had appeared around her was shattered in an instant. What kind of power was this? It could disrupt magical power? Nightingale had no time to dodge, and as the sword was about to fall onto her, Anna suddenly appeared in front of her, using dark fire to form a barrier. The giant sword slammed onto the dark fire, and pain flashed across Anna's face, her body wavering, but the barrier made out of dark fire did not disappear. This time Nightingale didn't hesitate, she held Anna and resummoned the mist, retreating over 20 meters. The armored demon also slowly landed on the ground. The death of its companions seemed to have no effect on it. It calmly raised its giant sword, engraved with strange patterns, and magical power suddenly surged into the greatsword, the blade bursting into a dazzling light. Nightingale's eyes widened. This is bad. She did not see the demon unleashing energy into the magic stone, but a huge, lightless black hole forming in the enemy's hand, and then the demon forcefully stabbed the sword into the ground. A wave of lightning instantly swept through the entire forest. Leaf and Iffy were forcibly thrown from the trunk, falling heavily to the ground. Leaf spat out a mouthful of blood. It seemed she was injured. It looked like the demon had found out about Leaf's ability. But why did the demon release magic power, just like the Stone of God punishment? Nightingale shook her head. Now was not the time to think about this. She loaded a new bullet chamber and charged at the armored demon. Nightingale quickly pulled the trigger, but the bullets did not penetrate the enemy's body as usual. The remaining bullets were all blocked by the giant sword, and Nightingale felt a chill in her heart. Nightingale drew her dagger and leaped towards the demon's head. The demon turned around, slicing towards her back. Nightingale constantly evaded in the mist. She then found an opportunity. She stabbed the dagger towards the back of the demon's helmet. Suddenly, the dagger broke, and Nightingale withdrew in a hurry, unable to believe that this demon actually had a magical barrier. The armored demon, having recovered, followed closely, once again swinging its sword horizontally. Nightingale again entered the mist, but this time she was not so lucky. The armored demon swung its sword and simultaneously reached out to grab Nightingale out of the mist. Nightingale was forcibly pulled out of the mist. At the same time, the demon slashed at Nightingale with its sword. A long wound appeared on her waist, and the protective clothing made by Soraya was ripped open from the inside out. Nightingale grunted, ignoring the pain on her waist, and after landing, rolled back, trying to avoid the follow-up attack. The armored demon raised its giant sword, and just as it was about to chop it down, several purple lights appeared beside the demon and quickly closed in, making its limbs and body stick together tightly. It was Iffy's magic cage. Iffy couldn't crush the armored demon in front of her, its power was far greater than her. The enemy let out a deafening roar, raised both hands and shattered the cage, yet before it could raise its sword, another circle of light pillars came down, trapping it again. Nightingale suddenly heard Anna's voice, telling her to take Iffy away. Anna immediately activated the divine seal imprint, and the forest was suddenly bathed in a splendid golden light, with rays of light pouring down from the sky. The demon screamed, having likely witnessed such a scene before, its previously angry tone now mingled with a trace of fear, its struggles intensifying. Nightingale clutched her wound, fleeing the scene with Iffy. Iffy supported Nightingale, who was about to fall, noticing the severe wound on Nightingale's abdomen. Suddenly, Anna slumped, and Leaf caught her from behind. Nightingale looked at Anna, realizing she was now depleted of magical energy. Iffy quickly bandaged Nightingale after letting her sit down. Out of the swirling dust, a black figure slowly emerged. The demon, with several broken horns on its helmet, its exquisite armor covered in cracks, and its arm and giant sword nowhere to be found, but still alive. It walked towards them step by step. Nightingale and Leaf were seriously injured, Anna was unconscious, and Iffy's magical energy was almost depleted. Now, no one could fight the armored demon. After quickly bandaging Nightingale, Iffy stood up. Nightingale looked at Iffy, asking what she intended to do. Iffy, holding the dagger concealed in her clothes, proclaimed that she was going to fight until the last moment. Despite her nearly depleted magical energy, she was still a combat witch. Iffy told Nightingale to use her abilities to evacuate everyone. If she couldn't take everyone, at least take one. At that moment, a familiar roar sounded in the sky. The demon barely lifted its head before being smashed into the ground by the plummeting Maisie, the forceful impact making the ground tremble beneath Nightingale. Excited, Iffy and Leaf urged Maisie to bite the demon to death. The demon on the ground suddenly attacked Maisie's eyes, forcing her back into her original form. Agatha recognized the demon, and an ice spike rose from the ground, sending it flying again, breaking several tree trunks in the process. Not giving the enemy a moment to breathe, she pursued it, freezing its legs. Maisie, recovering, drew her pistol, firing continuously at the immobile target. Nightingale bit her lip, changing her bullets, asked Iffy to help her get up, and began shooting at the armored demon. The armored demon roared, swatting Agatha away with its hand, sending her flying through the air, the ice crystals under its feet vanishing instantly. Then it tried to flee, wobbling unsteadily through the air. Agatha screamed that they couldn't allow it to escape. Leaf grabbed the divine seal imprint from Anna, pouring all her magic into it. Although she was forcefully sent out from her forest state, she still had sufficient magical energy and she could stably light the fourth gemstone in the divine seal imprint during regular testing. Soon, the golden light filled the forest again, and the demon, turning its head, emitted a strange cry, seemingly in disbelief at the scene before it. Then golden thunderbolt instantly engulfed it.